Peace. Hope everyone's having a wonderful weekend. I'd like to welcome you back to the Foul Playland. I'm now calling my channel Behold. Uh, Basically pointing to you what you should be observing, I guess. A lot of people are dumb, deaf, and blind in these times, and uh, you hope that everybody's taking things in. On this channel, I like to kind of like talk about news that maybe people aren't up to game on, or maybe they know a little something about, and to discuss those things that aren't being covered necessarily at times. But I'm gonna wait till more people come through too, or is see if anybody else comes through. Yeah, I just bagged two kittens last night too. My wife is washing them in the make sure they don't have fleas and shit. But doing that now, waiting to see if anybody pulls up. And I left the subject matter to be very open. Unfortunately, when you talk news and politics too, there's a lot of experts. You know, a lot of people that are jumping out of their own skin to tell you, what that you're wrong, and sometimes that's a pain in the ass, or that just gives a general sense of angst, like to even discuss these things. I'm making sure my audio works too, so if you guys give me a minute. I did watch a little bit of a Joe Rogan interview with Kash Patel, the now director of the FBI. If you guys didn't catch that, I didn't watch the whole thing. I probably watched over half of it though. But I'm not a big Joe Rogan person. Like, I don't like podcasts in general, honestly. Like, a lot of times, um, one of the best examples of podcasts that I don't like, as far as the style of how it plays out, like the listening pleasure of it. One of the ones I like the least is probably Joe Rogan, because a lot of vapid conversations that happen, or things that have nothing to do with what they're discussing, they'll just talk about their feel on a certain thing, and it's like a waste of 20 minutes. It'll be like 2 seconds of something good, and then 20 minutes of just nonsense. And that's why I choose not to listen to most podcasts. Um, Honestly, like, if you guys, to be 100% frank, and this is more of a recent trend too. Like, I said this on my last live, and oh, good, 3 people are here. Thank you guys for coming through. But I said this in my last live. I've taken more liberal news than any other news. Like, I like liberal news, not liberal news because I like it. I like liberal news more because they're trying to bullshit me more, and I like to see what kind of a tactic they would deploy, in a sense. So a lot of times, if I'm a Puerto Rican from Brooklyn. If you discuss these things in a, like, as far as politics, in a certain tinge where it doesn't sound like bleeding heart liberal, or where it's not constantly pointing out some shit like Trump did, it could certain people like just get emotional and wrapped up into it and think that it's based on some deep rooted other reason that you're not really publicly putting out there. Like, if you're not, like, sensationalized by something that Trump may have done, or if you don't outright, like, hate concert, like, or if you say anything bad about Joe Biden, like the last 4 years, that's a better example, honestly. Like, I was getting a lot of rancor, like, from people online, if I talked about anything negative about Biden while Biden was the president. And a lot of times, like, when you're getting rebuttals on, like, these conversations, or you're getting responses in conversation in which I would talk bad about Biden, like, they basically try to frame it as, oh, well, you're doing it because you're some Trump lover. Like, I don't really come onto this, like, YouTube or in real life too. I actually still talk to people in real life, believe it or not. not only my wife too, and my son, who's an adult. But a lot of times it's really hard to. It was really hard talk. It's really hard talking politics now. Even like if you mention things that Joe Biden did during his presidency, like people look at it, oh well, you're not trying to move on, or oh well, like you're one of those Trump people, and it was frustrating as it was happening, and like I mean, it's not like much has changed. I mean, even people that may have switched their allegiance and voted for Trump after voting liberal all their lives, a lot of those people aren't out here banging the drum necessarily, but what you do have is a lot of emotional people, um, and they'll bang the drum at any minute. And like it doesn't take anything for a lot of emotional people like to throw a rebuttal of, oh well, you're doing it because you're racist or something. And it's kind of crab talk like that, like or like, oh well, you're saying that because like you're worshiping Trump, and it's like really like sometimes it's very bothersome like to even do political talk in general. But I'm not doing political talk and trying to push an agenda or a politician at any point. I really don't come on here like that at all. I mean, like a lot of people, and you got to look at I got to look at things from a more 40-foot view and not get invested into it at times. Like when mostly my people, fellow minorities like myself, Puerto Ricans, if you will, like the Puerto Rican community. I mean, and other minority communities, but I'll talk about the Puerto Rican community just to put things lightly. The Puerto Rican community like will jump out of their face and on some emotional shit and accuse you of what your deep rooted causes for doing certain things or for observing, like for instance, like how bad Joe Biden looked for 4 years. Like they'll rebut that well with and I'm talking about Puerto Ricans again. Will rebut that. Let me make sure my sound is on. Damn, I don't think my audio is playing. Damn, I wish people were in the chat because I can't even tell if I'm talking or not. Right. And sorry, folks. Let me just making sure I'm on here. Sorry, folks. Okay, I'm good. All right, so yeah, so going back to talking about Puerto Ricans like myself, we could be very hard-headed in these conversations with politics. Things could turn into accusing the person that you're debating against of being a sellout, and these are tough things to navigate. Like I just want to forward as a little forward. Um, and I just discovered that I could get onto YouTube without showing my face, like I am today, as far as like with the phone. So I'm gonna start coming a lot more and hopefully having conversations with people. And another thing too, in terms of how I like to do it, I don't like talking to myself, you know. And frankly, I've had a lot of people when I go on to panels like to talk politics, um, that'll tell me that I'm wrong and that I'm deep rooted with some other business as far as you know feeling a way about Puerto Ricans or whatever have you on the low and not really expressing it. I rather like people come to my channel and go tit for tat, whether comment and whatnot. I rather talk to people is basically what I'm trying to say, rather than like talking to myself. But I'll have a I don't get a lot of traction as far as people popping up to tell me on the spot. I don't know how to explain it. But anyhow, I just gotta drive. I gotta pop up more on my own channel and um, I guess, spur on a debate by my mere presence. Anyhow, going back to the Joe Rogan podcast, which I barely listen to ever. I hate Joe Rogan's podcast. Not that of the individual, I just find it very boring. But they had the now FBI director Kash Patel um, on it. I listened to about 2/3 of it, a little bit more than half. I fell asleep. It was really boring. Nothing much of relevance was said besides what was not said. I mean, they asked him if he had video evidence of Epstein doing bad stuff, um, of what people are anticipating. They have evidence of Epstein, like basically material to do with little people. And he answered that there was none. And a lot of people are pissed off, as far as in the conservative world, are pissed off that they feel that maybe he's trying to hide something. Because a few weeks before that, or a few days before that, he said that there was no video evidence of somebody killing Epstein, basically verifying that Epstein did kill himself, where a lot of people um, in the conspiratorial theory, if you will, like think that Epstein was done in by somebody else. What's the matter? Okay. So a lot of people from the conservative world mainly are frustrated with the Dan Bonginos and the Kash Patels. Like they're expecting, hard evidence of bad things that have played out in recent history, like namely like Epstein and how you doing, Abi Manu Kumar Dast. I don't know what that means, but thank you for pulling up, and I hope I didn't butcher your name. So a lot of people are anticipating that Kash Patel would expose some deep stuff since he now has control of the FBI, like by being the FBI director appointed by Trump. A lot of people want a lot what more, I guess, physical evidence or things being exposed at a faster rate, and it's really not happening. Um, as far as from Kash Patel, Joe Rogan is, as much as I don't like it, I mean it's a venue in which you could speak for 2 hours, and Joe Rogan will sometimes ask hitting, hard hitting questions. And if at any time in that interview, from what I watched, Joe Rogan did present any questions that were tough, I mean, it just seems like Kash Patel was trying to divert from the topic, um, and wasn't giving anything juicy, if you will. The one thing that he did say is that they have a cell phone that belonged to Fauci while he was the director of the NIH or whatever position Fauci was, and that they have whatever text and data from his phone. I don't know what that's going to lead to. I mean, I and a lot of other conservatives, I mean, I guess would kind of like are thinking that maybe this is like a wait and see approach, and that they're gonna really put stuff out there of relevance after a time. I mean, like but most Americans aren't patient, and I for one, am one of them. I'd rather see things being put out there. I'd rather disseminate the truth on my own. Since Trump's been in office for, I mean, like about 4 months, 5 months, you haven't had much in the way of like real congressional investigations that have like put things on blast. Like, I mean, it's kind of like a wait and see approach right now. Like nothing really happening. Like as far as exposures go, I mean, like it's more of a to me, like it's almost as if Trump's like trying to see where people's positions are right before he really starts popping off at the bit and doing real like I don't know how to explain it, but I nothing of what's happened in this administration of yet, besides like the investments into the future and whatnot. It's been a lot of more of that rather than like people like Trump going after people politically. For the most part, Trump hasn't really gone after anybody politically. I mean, like the or his administration, if you will. A lot of what I've seen, it's more so announcements in defense, announcements in investment, like but nothing in the way of like I'm going after this politician like Adam Schiff, let's say, like somebody who clearly has anonymity with Trump, um, and Trump has anonymity against Adam Schiff as well. It seems like he's never had says a good word about him, but I guess people anticipated for Trump to come into office and right off the bat, go after like Adam Schiff types or whoever you perceive to be an enemy of Trump. And I mean, not that I was rooting for that, but personally, I think that a lot of bad has happened in the last 5 years, and I want it to be exposed. I mean, the fact that they did announce, like, for instance, going into Fauci's phone for what he was texting while he was the director of the NIH. I mean, that's good. That's fantastic. But I personally, I mean, and I've said it before, I've said it um, in a veiled way because the topic that I'm about to broach to you guys was one that was censored on this platform up until recently. I mean, similar to like COVID. I mean, and now, I mean, although I am complaining that Kash Patel really didn't put anything of any relevance in that Joe Rogan interview last night, but he did say that Fauci's phone was being looked at as we speak. I mean, and that's promising, yes. But I think the bigger issue, or one of the bigger political scandals that's probably happened in our lifetime, many of which have gone against Trump. I mean, I'm not a vested observer. Like I'm not. I didn't even root. I didn't even vote for Trump in this last election, even though I wanted him to win. My faith in elections is kind of like gone out the door, if you will. But the biggest political travesty that's ever happened is the fact that Joe Biden even won the election in 2020 in no conceivable legal way. I mean, like, or not legal. I mean, like, liberals like to change the definitions on you. Define legal, no, define legal. Like, like, no. I'm saying that the 2020 election was not straight up, and that's something that Trump has contended for 5 years now. I have contended that notion too, but I know where in the waters in which I swim, and not only do I have people like on YouTube, like people that may pull up to my channel and contend the notion that no, that election was straight up in 2020, but people getting emotional about it because they think you're supporting a bigot by saying that Joe Biden, nothing to do with Trump, Joe Biden was feeble-minded and definitely couldn't win the 2020 election because Joe Biden's been feeble-minded. I mean, and this is like something that is now being put out there, out in the open. Hey, Bruce Gas, peace. Thank you for coming through. In that Joe Biden had cognition problems, probably dating back to 2015. But putting that aside, I mean, Donald Trump had more votes in 2020 than he did in 2016. Joe Biden, however, had more votes in 2020 than anybody in the history of elections. The disparity between what Joe Biden got and what Obama got was probably reaching 19 million votes. And I mean, that's not normal. I mean, Joe Biden didn't elicit that much um, of a vote of confidence from the American people, and it was clear that they were trying to hide Joe Biden throughout that election cycle, or the campaign cycle, if you will. Like, I mean, and Trump was pointing that out too. And it's not because Trump said it that it's true. I'm telling you, like, I'm a human being, and I could observe what was happening then. I mean, during that time in the leading up to the 2020 election, Trump was full on campaigning, and Joe Biden wasn't even fit as far as the Democrats, who the Democrats were pushing. You had Kamala Harris, you had uh, who else were they running in 2020? Uh, Pete Buttigieg. There were other people that they were running that had more relevance than Joe Biden. I would tell you that I would feel that Bernie Sanders may have been back then a more relevant candidate, or probably higher in the hierarchy leading up to the 2020 election than Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a political nobody. I mean, like, besides being like lychee for 40 years while he was a senator, and tailing on to the being laced as a vice president to Obama. But during that time, I mean, it wasn't like there were many people clamoring for a Joe Biden presidency, for him to get 19 million more votes than what Obama got. I believe it was around 19 million, but it just didn't make sense to me. I mean, like, and the fact that YouTube and social media platforms were kicking you off platforms for saying that the 2020 election was not up to snuff. It just verifies that during these last 5 years, when that there's been things that were outright lies that were being pushed onto the populace, like a lot of the lies that happened during COVID, and like the bigger lie in all this, in that Joe Biden, a man who's, for all intents and purposes, not there mentally. This is not an assumption. This is something that Joe Biden's people are now putting out there. But I didn't need Joe Biden's people to verify that Joe Biden had cognitive decline, when I could see it happening in real time. I could see Joe Biden falling several times in campaign stops. I could see Joe Biden mumbling in his speech. And this was leading up to him even being named as a candidate. So I mean, a lot of the biggest lies, to put it plainly, were pushed by the mainstream media. And to be frank, I mean, and this is somebody who had contention with the biggest lies, the two biggest lies that I just mentioned, that were ran onto the American populace and the world at large, in that COVID was overblown, and Joe Biden was not the rightful president, by way of the 2020 election being funky at best. But having that contention, which I did have that contention for these last 5 years, I mean, you get called all kinds of crazy shit. I mean, me, a Puerto Rican, like, hood dude, I mean, I'll get called a racist or a bigot by some online asshole in his underwear who barely leaves his house and grew up on Iowa or some shit. So I mean, it's tough waters to navigate, and I think it almost seems like it was a large test from the gods, like, as to where people would stand and whatnot, like where people's emotions, negative emotions, honestly, would bring them to. I mean, a lot of people that hated on Trump when Trump came out with the vaccine, which I was opposed to. I mean, I remember for about 2 weeks, every liberal commentator was saying that they're not going to take that Trump jab, and they're not going to take that vaccine, because they attributed it to Trump. But the liberal media got their teeth into the subject 2 weeks later, and it changed into, well, you shouldn't be allowed to enjoy with the rest of society who took the jab unless you yourself take the jab, because you're making us unsafe. And a lot of people were wrapped into these conversations, um, and things got really really ugly. And we're now finding out that a lot of these things were a big lie, and it's kind of like gone over people's heads. Going back to the 2020 election too, and one of the things Kash Patel did discuss. I'm gonna have a guest onto my show, I believe, this Wednesday, Lord willing. According to Sam, he has a fantastic channel, and he also is in the YouTube cellar as far as being kiboshed, and having no eyes on his channel. But he's a so-called black brother. I'm not saying so-called. I just don't like to use the word black anymore to describe my my bronze-skinned brothers of America. Anyhow, but he discusses political things in a very not emotionally invested way, and it's good to talk to people like that because you know one of the subjects that Kash Patel discussed, which was Nellie Orr, who is the wife of Bruce Orr. This past week, I mean, it kind of like didn't register with many people, but there was a senator from, damn, I want to say Iowa, Chuck Grassley, who ordered for that, the general gist, if I remember correctly, I don't want, like, please don't quote me, but he basically said that a lot of the information that, or part of the information that Nellie Orr, one of the people who helped come up with the fake info about Donald Trump while he was running in 2016, and created a fake narrative that Trump was an agent of Russia. This story was a known fake. Like, it was created and paid for by somebody that was campaigning against Trump. Anyhow, that's basically the long and short of it. I mean, like, it was created by, like, basically like a think tank from some lady, and one of the people that helped procure it was a lady named Nellie Orr, who was actually married to an official, I believe, in the one of these investigative agencies at the time, who was going against Trump. His name was Bruce Orr. But Chuck Grassley yesterday, mind you, this was done in 2016. And Kash Patel said that the statute of limitations has now run out on those crimes that were committed back then, to basically create a fake narrative that Russia was holding the puppet strings on Trump. The Russian dossier, if you will. If you guys remember the Russian dossier, or remember hearing the word Russian dossier, it was basically like a P tape that Trump was into, like, women peeing on him or something to that effect. The story was bought and paid for by agents in the DNC and corrupted, I believe, people that were working in government. Kash Patel mentioned those in passing and kind of like threw water on it, as in, oh, well, these people can't be prosecuted because the statute of limitations. And it would make sense because a lot of that stuff happened probably 2015, 2016, and we're now in 2025. I think the statute of limitations on most crimes like 7 years, like the bad ones. So, but I think that it's a good discussion to have. One, because most people don't know anything about the Russian dossier and how it came about. Two, till this day, and it's something that Kash Patel mentioned in the Joe Rogan interview yesterday. Till this day, people feel that Russia has some sort of leverage over Trump. I mean, like, I'll go on to shows, to panels, and people will still mention, hey, but he's a Putin puppet, or stuff like that. So this weight that has been hung over Trump's head since he was a candidate, essentially was bought and paid for by people that were running against Trump, essentially. And Kash Patel is now either trying to break it to you that one of the people that was exposed in all that lying to Congress, this Nellie Orr, because she made it seem in Congress when she testified to Congress that her working as an independent contractor on this Russia collusion thing had nothing to do with her husband, and I guess it was exposed that she was actually sending info from her private agency that was digging up this fake info on Trump directly to her husband, where she was trying to paint it in Congress. And I don't know how anybody found that acceptable, that, well, no, her husband, who was working for the government at that time and was sort of behind the scenes bringing this Russian dossier to the authorities, and her work digging up as a private contractor this fake info on Trump to create the Russian dossier had nothing to do with each other. Like, basically, her work and her husband's work didn't collide with each other, which is, I mean, a bunch of BS. But the American people, with statements like Kash Patel made yesterday, in that, well, yeah, these people did wrong, like Bruce Orr and Nellie Orr, and like the people that came up with the Russian dossier in general, did do real harm to America, but they're not going to be able to be prosecuted. And that's a really tough pill to swallow, I mean, if you're paying attention. And I'm not saying that because I want uh, a political point or a tally point like for Trump. No, I'm saying that because in 2020, going back to that election, when it was exposed to the world that Hunter Biden had this laptop, and that there was a lot of incriminating evidence on Joe Biden, who was running in the 2020 election, the media and political agents at large said that the Hunter Biden laptop and the fact that it was released out into the world had hallmarks of Russian disinformation. And it was basically dismissed. Hunter Biden's laptop, which had a ton of incriminating evidence on Joe Biden and on the Biden crime family, that story was kiboshed by the media at large because of the fact that these government agents, 51 of them, concocted a letter and said that that release of the Hunter Biden laptop had all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. It was basically Russian spy shit trying to meddle in our elections again. Because if the Russian dossier had that, if it had any sort of success, it was that people would attribute Trump with the Russians in perpetuity, like they still do now. So when in 2020, when Trump's running again to retain his presidency, there's this Hunter Biden laptop that comes out in the October leading up to the elections, something that it seems as if it would help Trump in his bid to retain the presidency, but it gets sequestered and silenced by the media and by these 51 agents as Russian disinformation. So I mean, like, would that tactic have worked in to try to associate Trump with Russia again in 2020 if the Russian dossier was not effective in 2016? And it's a conversation that Americans should have, in that should these crimes that are now exposed. I mean, Nellie Orr has been found to have lied to Congress. And this was just put out by Chuck Grassley and mentioned by Kash Patel, the director of the FBI. Um, should the American people accept that these people did irreparable harm to the country by handing the candidacy, the presidency to Biden, in essence? You know, that election between Biden and Trump was really close in 2020. Um, I believe that exposure to the Hunter Biden laptop, which is still something that hasn't been done at a mass scale, besides the fact that the mainstream media at large has now accepted that Hunter Biden's laptop actually does belong to Hunter Biden. It's not something that was concocted out of Russian magic. But now that these things are exposed as true, I mean, how much harm could that have done to Joe Biden's prospects a month before the election? He would not have beaten Trump in a straight up election had the truth of the Hunter Biden laptop have allowed to be revealed. And somebody saying that the Hunter Biden's laptop, which had several pictures of him in doing God knows what, all kinds of debauchery, it would look like a silly person to say, "Oh, well, that's a Russian disinformation." To have actual pictures of Hunter Biden, if that Russian dossier had not existed, and that stain of Trump being somehow associated with Russia, which we now know is a lie that was paid for by people within the Democratic National Convention. I mean, so I think that the conversation is steer into the what can we do now that we know these things went down in the way in which it went down. I mean, the harm that has been done to the country by way of hiding this story has been insurmountable. How many people did Joe Biden allow into the country because he was elected? Now, I mean, like, say what you want about Trump. I mean, you may not feel the way about him, but I'll tell you one thing. He wouldn't allow this many people into the country. I mean, and it seems that Joe Biden, in his former cognitive self, his politics in terms of the border probably would have aligned with Trump's, because he'd never been this guy that said open the border throughout his political life. But even looking past that, I mean, like, he would not have been in office had this Russian dossier, which was fake, had that have never been introduced into the world, or had the media have been a responsible media and covered things like the Hunter Biden laptop right before the election, and exposed them for what they were. I mean, like, property of Hunter Biden. I mean, like, so I mean, like, it seems as if we're in an inflection point in this country. I mean, like, and throughout the world. I mean, like, because this has had ramifications throughout the world. But it seems as if we're in this inflection point of a lot of truth being exposed. And most people, I mean, like, I've given up hope. A lot of people are really dumb. Sometimes really big news gets put out there, and if Puffy's case is happening simultaneously, I mean, like, it's not going to register with most people. Unless the media is telling you, like, hey, listen, this is something you should be paying attention to, and it has a negative tinge of Trump in the story, people ain't going to pay attention to it. However, I can't really depend on, like, other people, like, to be enlightened to see what's happening in the world. I mean, like, I think most people are going to start catching up in a sense, and start to pay attention to these things that have played out in recent history. by hook or by crook. I mean, like, I can't anticipate what Trump will do next. I mean, like, I do feel that some more exposure to a lot of these things is in order and will happen no matter what. Trump hasn't stopped saying that the 2020 election was stolen. I mean, he's been kind of like driving the point a lot more recently. I mean, even when they don't ask him, he'll bring it up. I mean, and that's good because we do got to look backwards a couple years. I mean, this is something that a lot of people that get wrapped up in these emotional conversations, you that are just looking to tell you, a response. They can't go back a month or two. A lot of times, like, people within their feelings, like, it's hard for them to go back, um, 4 years, or to the pre-COVID era. But we're gonna have to start doing that. I mean, like, I think, we're at the verge of really big things in this country. I mean, like, things are really, really pressurized at the moment. I mean, and it's not just here in America. I mean, but this summer it just seems like it's gonna be, popping off in all sorts of directions. I mean, last summer was litty, with all that went down. I mean, Trump being propelled to a victory, by way of somebody trying to eliminate him. Um, unfortunate that somebody would try, but that happened last summer, and that pretty much propelled Trump into a political field in which it went from people accepted the fact that Trump was being, destroyed in the media at all times, and that there were just a class of people in the country that were constantly crying about some shit that Trump would bring up. The fact that somebody tried to end them last summer and that he survived it changed the tone of the conversations in this country. It went from, like, you had to kind of listen to somebody crying and bitching about Trump to where you could finally start to tell them, listen, like, shut the hell up. Somebody did try to, like, murk him, like, it kind of was one of the biggest pivots that I saw amongst the way people thought, I guess. And this summer, I think, is going to be even more spicy. I mean, like, they're not really deporting people at the rate in which is necessary, in my thinking, as far as if they wanted to get out everybody who entered under Joe Biden. I think somebody said that they would need to deport like 8,000 people per day. Like, I'm not one of these people, like, that's, do I want mass deportations? Yes, in the sense that there was a mass migration that happened, and I think we rapidly need to get a lot of these people out of here. Do I think it's gonna happen? I don't think so, because like I said, somebody mentioned that they would need to deport 8,000 people per day throughout the Trump presidency in order to get out the amount of people that Biden brought in. And that's just really hard. I mean, like, they said that the people that have been deported and all these court cases that have happened, like, under um, Trump, and trying to deport criminal migrants out of the country, that alone has been like a handful of migrants, and it's caused so many headaches that they can't envision um, how it would work out with trying to kick out 20 million people, like, when they've had such trouble deporting, let's say, like, 100,000 people, whatever number that they've done thus far. I don't know what that number is. So I don't know, like, is something gonna happen in this country, like, that kind of gets the populace to say, listen, like, we agree with Trump, like, we got to get, like, a lot of these people out here um rapidly. Like, what do we got to do to accomplish that? Now, I'm not endorsing the conversation that may procure, like, oh, like, do we got to go into a world of mass IDs, and a system in which everybody got to prove who they are, like, whether electronically or, is not something that I endorse. um, you know but are riveting conversations, or riveting actions, going to be taking place throughout the world, in the next coming months? I think they already are under the surface. I mean, there's a lot of pressure throughout the world happening right now. I mean, World War is really at the cusp of popping off in several theaters throughout the world. You have a lot of political tension happening here in America. You have basically an invading class that has come into the country, that is being co-opted by a liberal class in this country, whose principle, who, not principal intention, but whose actions can sometimes turn into violence, and it's an acceptable standard to have, because they don't like Trump. That this is the picture as it's laid out right now in this country. I mean, and I think right now, throughout the Trump presidency, we're still in a bated breath, like waiting to see what's gonna pop off. I mean, because in essence, nothing really big has popped off besides, you know, executive orders or actions that have happened, legislatively, yes, but, and then the fact that you do see some people getting deported, um, not at a mass scale like people would anticipate would be necessary to rectify the migrant problem. But right now, I look at it as if nothing really of substance has happened in the Trump presidency, outside of shutting down the border, which I look at as a good thing. Do I predict things will remain this calm in the immediate future? Absolutely not. But now that I know how to not show my face and do my little YouTube thing, I'm gonna be here to discuss these things with y'all. I'm gonna be taking off now. My back is killing me, and I got to do this podcast standing up because I can't bear to sit. But I do want to thank those of you who had pulled up, Bruce Gas, Boxing Jazz, and more. My brother, thank you for pulling up, and the gentleman with the Indian name, um, whoever you are. I mean, one talking English, but anybody who listens to me, do like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. I'm gonna try to make a commitment to come on here more often as well. But with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I'm out. Peace.